everyone. This is update for May 17, 2023, day 448 of the war, end of the date update. It's also catch up for May 16. Just going to start with more international updates, and then I'm going to switch to Ukraine as sort of typical. First, China-Taiwan situation is everybody's seeing right now is not de-escalating. Actually, in my opinion, the escalation is going up. U.S. is trying to supply this 500 million worth of weapons to Taiwan, and that irritates Chinese leadership to the extreme level. I would say as extreme as it gets before you actually have a hot war. And to be realistic, that 500 million worth of weapons, they're not gonna save or change the outcome for Taiwan. It's very clear that the society there is divided. Part of it is actually wants to be part of this, who support the Nationalist Party. It does look that they just want to be kind of truly independent. And then this Progressive Party, I believe that's what's the name of it, that's ruling party in Taiwan. It's effectively affiliated with the Democratic Party of the U.S. And so there is the society there looks like it's torn. So that's really hard to have to defend the country if the society is split. It does look though that this Nationalist Party has a smaller part as opposed to Progressive Party that has probably slim majority, looks like, but this is all just estimates and guesses, and we'll find out later when things will start developing there. That's in terms of China. Now let's switch to Russia and Iran. Russia and Iran signed agreement to build railroad that goes all the way from St. Petersburg to the Persian Gulf through Azerbaijan and then Iran. The reason I'm mentioning it is because to have this line there was just one missing link, which was 164 kilometer length in Iran. And it's basically, it goes from former Soviet Union border, which is Azerbaijan now, inside of Iran for 164 kilometers. That's all it is. That's the missing link to have entire line working. And the agreement that was signed between Russia and Iran that this 164 kilometers will take 3 years to build. So this kind of tells you everything you need to know about capabilities of both countries, which are not there. Let's put it this way. This is just dictatorships that are not capable, inept, and incapable of much. The real sort of powerhouse in this whole alliance is really China. Because if China were to do it, that probably will be done in, 3-6 months, the whole thing. So that's the difference. And as you can see, the usefulness of this two other sides is fairly minimal. However, the importance of these two countries is that they can supply natural resources, and specifically crude oil, and in case of Russia also food, to China directly, not through the sea, not through the ocean, but by land. And that's why there's this construction of all of this logistical railroad channels in case if ocean traffic is going to be disrupted, China is going to be able to get resources it needs to continue the war. And by the way, there is much more going on the border between Russia and China. There is a new sort of, how to say, spots on the border that being built, where crossing points, I guess that's a probably proper name, crossing points for railroads and for regular road or tracks being built and open. Some of these crossing points, they being switched to 24-hour operations. So as you can see, the links are being built extremely quickly between the two. Also, China is effectively gaining control of Kazakhstan, which is another link to Russia. And also, Kazakhstan has a large supply of crude oil, which is going to be essential for China. And it also has large production facility of uranium, which is used for nuclear power stations. So effectively, China and Russia are cutting off West from the supply of uranium for nuclear power plants. I mean, there is still supply in Canada. There is some in Australia, but those are not sufficient to support the West. And just to give you feeling about the importance of it is, in U.S. alone, nuclear power plants produce 20% of electricity generation. Plus, UK is building more nuclear power plants and so on. So it's going to be a problem. And on top of it, if you remember, I mentioned about the Wagner Group, that they gaining foothold in Africa, so the sub-Sahara Africa, literally, like not like the entire sub-Sahara, but literally under Sahara, like Mali and so on. So they are, and the reason they pushing there is they want to gain control of the uranium mines there that used to be controlled by French. So again, they cutting off, like as you can see, it's kind of like a strategic game where you slowly but surely cutting off your opposing party from the key supply of key material, and and this is the only, like that as I said before, the only key suppliers that are in full control of the West are Canada and Australia. That's pretty much it. The rest is to some degree is under control of this China, Russia, Iran alliance. Then another update is on the grain deal. It's going to be extended for 2 months. This is actually amazing what Turkish president is managed to do. He basically forced Russia to extend the grain deal by 2 months, and Russia didn't get anything. They want to export its own grain and also ammonia, which is precursor for manufacturing of nitrogen fertilizers, and it's still being blocked. So they didn't get any, Russia didn't get literally nothing in return, and but they agreed to this deal because Turkey allows effectively import of a lot of other things from the West. So basically, this gray import or black import that goes into Russia, it goes through Turkey. Turkey is important hub for it, also important hub for financial transactions, for selling crude oil. So basically, it's important intermediary that has hold or and control over Russia. So so Russia did this favor specifically to the current Turkish president to help him to get reelected, because those who probably paid attention, on the 14th, on the Sunday, Turkey had election where it's effectively 50-50 between the current Turkish president, who is, I would say, anti-West and more sort of anti-US, and then the sort of his opponent, who is obviously pro-West, pro-US. And so he already vowed that he's going to basically disengage Turkey from relationship with Russia. So all of this sort of um, black market business is going to be probably significantly reduced. Probably will not be completely reduced. It's just too much money, too much profit. You can't really cut it off completely, but it will be significantly reduced. And obviously, Russia doesn't want that, so they did a favor to Turkish president, and they extended this deal so he can use it in internal politics. About how much influence he has and so on. This is also, and just to highlight how the current Turkish president is really skilled at basically extorting other parties for what he wants. He also is able to sell weapons to Ukraine at the same time, and so Ukraine is also buying shells, artillery shells, specifically 155 millimeter shells from Turkey, some other personnel carriers from Turkey, and so on, and this UAVs, Bayraktars, which are now everybody's openly talking that they are essentially useless, but there was so much money wasted in the first, I would say, 6 months of the war on the tool that's useless. But basically, Turkey making a lot of money off Ukraine. It also, this extension of grain deal ensures that Ukraine supports also all quiet with respect to current Turkish president, because it allows export of Ukrainian grain. This is the only outlet left. Otherwise, the farmer or not only farmers but people who do the industrial agriculture will be devastated in Ukraine, because Eastern Europe essentially erected a wall against Ukrainian grain, which is totally understandable, totally reasonable. There's no question about that. So there is only one outlet, which is through Black Sea, and without that outlet, the economic situation in Ukraine, which is already terrible, is going to be many more times worse. So as you can see, this Turkish president is really managed to really gain control of both countries effectively, and get what he needs. And so far he is very successful at that. At the same time, I would say that his empire building aspiration are destroying Turkey from within, destroying its economy. You've heard about the currency, you've heard about the terrible inflation there. That's just a result of his imperialistic ambitions, which empire is always self-destruction, no matter where it's practiced. And so he's proving that as well. Now let's switch to actually Ukraine. And in terms of the offensive, it's very clear that it's the whole. If I could give a snapshot of what's really happening, is the following: Ukraine is preparing in the final stages of preparation for the offensive. Russia is actively preparing to obviously fight back. So it essentially stopped all of their offensive activity pretty much everywhere, with exception of Wagner mercenaries, but they are sort of standalone organization. They are really not aligned with Russian Ministry of Defense. And it's becoming more and more clear that head of Wagner mercenaries, he's sort of pro common sense in Russia, which is in the modern world, and this is true for everywhere. This alliance of Russia, Iran, and China and the West, the common sense is becoming very rare and not so common anymore around the world. And so he's very pro common sense and very entrepreneurial. And in this ways, he's becoming a big problem for the Russian system, which is extremely bureaucratic, total red tape, basically complete monopolization, disempowerment, all of the sort of negative things you can imagine. And there is this antagonism between to the extreme level, basically, and effectively at this point, the head of Wagner mercenaries, Prigozhin, is effectively stating his sort of philosophical views that are at extreme odds with the current Russian sort of power structure, how Russia works. And effectively, I can see him as a leader of Russia's 1917 moment, because he is very popular. He's getting extreme popularity. He has a lot of support. He can lead people. He has the most important, which was lacking in Russia. There were no ideas. There's no sort of positive ideas, and the problem for Ukraine, I guess, from Ukrainian perspective, that's a big problem, because he actually has positive ideas. He may get killed by the Russian sort of bureaucratic apparatus, because they don't, obviously they want to keep the things the way they are. They don't want to change. So for them, actually, head of Wagner is bigger enemies than Ukraine, because Ukraine is essentially the same. Eventually, they hope and plan that somehow there will be some kind of deal between Russia and Ukraine, and this war is just kind of like a process for the sake of process. Eventually, it will get normalized. Head of Wagner mercenaries, he wants to actually, effectively, change Russia. So in a way, it's sort of it doesn't sound initially, but if you really think about it, it's a revolutionary change for Russia itself that can significantly advance Russia and make it actually much, credible force in all respects. So from that perspective, that's in a way existential threat for Ukraine. Much more important than really understood and appreciated, because there is this kind of like attitude towards him as just, he just just the head of this mercenaries, and just a person who rents a lot, and so on. There's it's actually much worse than that. That is actually totally not a problem. There is another item I would like to discuss is there's all of this like so-called peace envoys that are coming to Ukraine from sort of different parts of the world this time. So I spoke about this Roman Pope, or best Catholic Pope, or head of Catholic Church, whatever you call it. And so he was trying to sort of push his agenda on Ukraine. And in this case, I give credit, which I pretty much never do, to Ukrainian president, that he pushed back. He put very clear boundaries. We don't need this intermediaries in peace negotiations, because it's very clear that all of these intermediaries in negotiations, what they want is really, they just want to freeze the war where it is right now, and or suggest territorial concessions for Ukraine. So essentially, they want to solve their own problems at the expense of Ukraine. And in this respect, Ukrainian president is doing the right thing by telling all of this different forces, outside forces out of Ukraine, that's not going to be the solution. The solution is Ukrainian territorial integrity, and no freezing of this war, because the example from 2014, it was frozen till 2022, and there's obviously it's not a solution, let's put it this way. So Ukraine has no, in a way, it's Ukraine has no option but be firm on those key 2 points. I think the rest could be up for negotiation, but those two key points are not negotiable. And from this perspective, this Chinese envoy that's actually had negotiation, I think it's just a dead end. It will not get anywhere because obviously China is pushing its own agenda, which is not constructive and it's not going to go anywhere. And then there is another group coming from Africa, but effectively, it's, as I said, I just want to reiterate, and it's very clear in Ukraine. It's just a desire by all of these countries or forces to solve their own problem at expense of Ukraine, and it's very clear to Ukraine. And those forces have zero leverage on Ukraine, and Ukraine has no, and in general, I'd say Ukraine has no desire to negotiate on those 2 points, even like, let's say, in case of leverage from the West, because in the end, it's gonna be lost for the West if Ukraine loses. Let's put it this way. And I think leadership in Ukraine understand that very well as well. Now let's walk through the front line. I'm gonna do it in a clockwise fashion, starting from the north and then moving in a clockwise fashion, as I said. So the situation along the state border remains intense. No essential changes there. Now let's move to the North Lugansk front line. There is some activity by Russian troops, but there's this, as I said before, it's frozen. This is just tactical attacks, small scale. This is nothing major. I just show it just for the record. Let's put it this way. But again, this is just a tactical fight, similar to the fights in this forest here around Dnipro. There's never-ending tactical fights there. Now let's look at North Donbass front line. Things here are frozen with exception of Bakhmut and immediately north and south of Bakhmut. Let's actually look. This is updated sort of map. At this point, Ukrainian troops were pushing north, straight north of Bakhmut, but that push was finally stopped by the Russian troops. So there is no more push here. However, there were quite a bit of gains, and as I said, Ukrainian troops gained some key points here that will allow to hold defense in this area. And then here in actual Bakhmut, at this point, actually Russian, Wagner mercenaries are squeezing Ukrainian troops much faster. They gain sort of momentum, and they effectively, I would say, squeezed Ukrainian troops out of Bakhmut. There's like, I don't know, 10 buildings left or whatever. Apartment complexes. That's what by that I mean. Like it's essentially that's it. So it's actually happened much faster than I thought, because initially the Wagner mercenaries were advancing very, very slowly. But as I said, over past, like, let's say 3-4 days, they really gained momentum, and Ukrainian troops essentially have nothing to hold to anymore. So at this point, they effectively sort of get pushed out. At the same time, Ukrainian troops managed to advance further here in the southern sector, south of Bakhmut, and they effectively on outskirts of Klishchiyivka, which is important location because it's effectively key to the whole area south of Bakhmut, because I showed it a long time ago, but there was a map which showed that Bakhmut is kind of like in the at the bottom of the valley, and this is the river. Like if I go, it goes kind of like south towards north, and this is kind of like a wall, like just a ridge, right? This along this river, as you can imagine, and so you have both sides, higher ground here on the eastern bank, and then higher ground on the western bank. And so, if you control Klishchiyivka, you effectively control higher ground everywhere south of Bakhmut. So all of your attempts to move straight west out of Bakhmut effectively useless. As the same goes true for these heights here that Ukrainian forces gain control of. So again, so any attempt to basically move straight west will lead to very high losses for Russian troops, uh, and especially if Ukrainian troops manage to really gain Klishchiyivka. They gain some highs here, but it's still kind of not quite there. So this is the only sort of remaining question here left. And it's going to be very interesting because effectively what if Wagner mercenaries are going to be pulled out from this front line once they are done with capturing Bakhmut, they're going to leave situation for the regular Russian army where they effectively will not be able to attack west. And then I think head of Wagner mercenaries will be blaming and saying, like, you see, we were so successful pushing forward, but you see that once we pass it to the Russian regular army, they cannot advance anymore. But to be fair, he basically will pass hand grenade to the Russian army, where you effectively cannot. It's a suicidal to advance in a straightforward western direction, like here where I show, because the heights to the south and north controlled by Ukrainian troops, and effectively you have flanking fire, and you're gonna have huge losses. And again, now to recapture those heights, it will be extremely high losses. Which is Russian army is extremely averse to. This is not Wagner Group, where they effectively don't care about the losses. The goal is the goal, and this effectively probably puts this whole situation around Bakhmut at this point in a long stalemate. And this is, I'm not talking about the offensive. Let's say offensive not happening. Right, if things go straight way the way they are right now, it's effectively putting everything kind of like in a stalemate. However, as we all understand, there will be this offensive, there will be counter-offensive as well by the Russian side. So that will change the balance, will take everything off the balance. So we'll see what happens then. It's hard to predict anything, but for now, this is the situation around Bakhmut. This is what it was on the 15th. So you can see this is the gain that I'm showing here south of Ivanivsk. And this is the key gain that for Ukrainian side, let's say. And effectively, if I would say summarize, so the Ukrainian command has actually managed to stabilize, to seal the situation, to make it stable, so that Russian troops cannot easily advance westwards after they capture completely Bakhmut. So that's the sort of the summary of this whole situation. Let's put it this way. At the same time, and I just want to make it very clear, if somehow Wagner mercenaries will get again source of their recruits, which is from the prisons, if that will open up again for them and they get more weapons and artillery shells, then they back in action, that they probably will go and continue their their attacks, and there is a chance that they will recapture what they lost, because as I said before, Wagner Group is much better organization than Ukrainian army, and Ukrainian army does not have strategic answer to Wagner Group. And even though there is this third brigade, which is also known as Azov. The brigade is not enough relative to the Wagner Group, which is much larger organization. So eventually, Wagner Group will chew up Third Brigade, and it basically it's not going to stop. This may slow down Wagner mercenaries, but they will not stop them. So now let's. This is just the same, just from the big picture. So as you can see, in a way, kind of like frontline, somewhat straightened out to extent. So there is this Ukrainian troops kind of lost the salient, but then this salient to the south of Bakhmut was also kind of erased by Ukrainian troops. Um, so now let's move to central Donbass front line. Things here are quiet. As I said, the only area of sort of action is Marinka, but that's just effectively, as I said before, a World War One type of situation with no clear sort of, how to say, light at the end of the tunnel. So they're exactly perfectly summarizing what was happening in World War One. That's exactly what's going on there, and it looks like World War One there. Now let's move to the Zaporizhya front line. Things here are quiet for now. Obviously, as I said, this is the most likely area where Ukrainian command will seek key decisive victory. We'll see what happens here effectively. That's it for today. Thanks for watching. Until next time. Bye bye.